Coming off Unnatural Selection, Flotsam and Jetsam had already started clawing their way back from the wilderness years. After nearly a decade of chasing sounds that didn't quite fit them, flirting with alternative and grunge textures that left a lot of longtime fans scratching their heads, the band brought in two new members, drummer Craig Nielsen and guitarist Mark Simpson, and used them to steer the ship back toward the thrash roots that built the band's reputation in the first place. It wasn't an overnight transformation. Unnatural Selection was the first step. My God, released on May 22nd, 2001. And keep that date in mind, it will mean something when I get to Chapter 3. By this point, the lineup was Eric A.K. Knutson on vocals, Ed Carlson and Mark Simpson trading off guitar duties, Jason Ward on bass, and Craig Nielsen behind the kit. This was a band that had weathered a genuinely brutal stretch of the 90s, commercially overlooked, constantly compared to a sound they helped invent, and never quite escaping cult status despite influencing entire waves of thrash bands that came after them. My God was recorded between October 2000 and January 2001 at Vintage Recorders in their hometown of Phoenix, Arizona, with Bill Metoyer producing alongside the band. Metoyer's name that thrash fans will recognize, a guy with real pedigree in the scene, and his fingerprints show up in the record's tone. It's thick, punchy, unpolished in the right ways. This wasn't an album chasing radio play. It was a band making peace with what they actually do best. Sonically, My God leans hard into the sound that made Doomsday for Deceiver and their early Metal Blade record so beloved. Pummeling riffs, tight harmonized guitar work between Carlson and Simpson, and a rhythm section that doesn't let up. There's a rawness to it that feels intentional, almost like the band was consciously stripping away the studio gloss of the previous decade's experiments. It's not a nostalgia record, though. It's not trying to be Doomsday again. It's a band in their late 30s, battle-tested, playing thrash with a weight of experience behind it rather than the reckless energy of 20-year-olds. That maturity comes through in the songwriting too. The hooks are sharper, the structure's a little more deliberate. Lyrically, this is very much a pre-9/11 record, and that context matters. The themes running through My God are political, religious, and social, skepticism toward organized religion, distrust of institutions, frustration with the state of the world, but they're coming from a specific moment. This is 2001 optimism / cynicism, pre-war on terror, pre-the world changing overnight. The anger here is more general, more philosophical. It's a band looking at consumerism, hypocrisy, and manipulation rather than reacting to a specific national trauma, which gives the record a different flavor than a lot of the metal that would come out just a few months later. Let's talk about a few key tracks. The title cut, My God, is about as direct a statement as the band makes on the record. It's a broadside against religious hypocrisy and the way faith gets weaponized for control rather than comfort. It's not subtle, and it's not meant to be. Knutson's vocal delivery on this carries real venom, and the riff underneath him matches that intensity beat for beat. It's one of the heaviest, most focused tracks on the album, and it's easy to see why the band chose it as the title track. It's a thesis statement for the whole record's worldview. Camera Eye takes a different angle. It's built around surveillance and the feeling of being watched, judged, and controlled by unseen forces. In 2001, more smartphones, before social media, before surveillance state conversations that dominate discourse today, this was already tapping into something the band clearly felt creeping into modern life. Listen back now, it almost feels ahead of its time, even if the band was working from a more general sense of paranoia rather than any specific technology. Musically, it's one of the tighter, more aggressive cuts in the record, shorter, punchier, less room to breathe. Then there's Learn to Dance, which is a bit of an outlier in tone. It's got a slightly different groove to it. Reportedly, the main riff was actually inspired by a track from the band Widow's Rose, and lyrically, it plays with themes of manipulation and control in a more personal, almost interpersonal way, rather than the broader political targets elsewhere on the record. It shows a little more range in what the band was capable of at the stage without straying too far from the album's overall heaviness. Beyond those three, the record has real depth. Dig Me Up to Bury Me opens things with one of the most ferocious tracks in the album. Frustrate lives up to the name with a tight, aggressive burst. And closer, I.A.M.H. stretches out past 30 minutes and even hides an acoustic reprise of Thrash at the tail end. A nice little Easter egg for anyone who sticks around after the song fades out.
Get behind for what's coming up. There's no way to prepare.
Critically, My God was well received within the thrash community. Not a crossover hit by any means, but a record that told longtime fans the band they loved was back and firing on all cylinders. Reviewers pointed to the musicianship of the Carlson-Simpson guitar tandem, specifically praising the interplay and the tightness of the dual leads. It wasn't a record that reinvented anything, but nobody wanted a reinvention at this point. They wanted Flotsam and Jetsam sounding like Flotsam and Jetsam again, and that's exactly what they got.
Just fear, anger, and jealousy.
Commercially, though, the story stayed the same as it had for most of the 90s. This was very much still a cult status band, respected, influential, foundational even, but never quite breaking into mainstream metal conversation the way some of their peers did. My God closed out this era of Flotsam and Jetsam on a high note, a band that had fought its way back to the sound that made them who they are, delivering one of the most well-received records of their comeback. But just months after the album hit shelves, something happened that nobody saw coming. The band's future got thrown into serious doubt, and one of the constants that had carried Flotsam through every lineup change since the early 80s was suddenly no longer a sure thing. We're going to dig into exactly what that means, what went down, and who stepped up to keep the band alive. So we have somebody coming into the band. I'll talk about that later. So before we move into 2005's Dreams of Death, where the band attempts their first true concept album and pushes their sound into territory they'd never fully explored before, that's going to be next episode, so you don't want to miss how that episode starts. And if you enjoyed this one, make sure to like the video and subscribe for more. And if you want to catch up on the full story, check out the Flotsam and Jetsam series playlist, which should be appearing on your screen. And I'm going to complete this until the new one comes out. I'll review the new one. If I don't finish by the time the new one comes out, I will just complete the whole series. Either way. So, thanks for watching. See you in the next one.